You guys want to watch the Destiny interview? Path of Exile devs refuse to play it safe, even when it keeps them up at night. So there was a new interview done. This one by Destin. He's done a lot of PoE 2 related interviews, and this is a PoE 1 interview. I don't know if this is his first PoE 1 interview or not. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a new one.
And you're like, I'm going to come up with a system that's just out there. It's just crazy. And, it takes a level of confidence to actually pitch it and have a level of confidence that yeah, I can get this made. We're getting into like some gaming psychology here. Whereas I'm just like, how can we make it cool? How can we make it so that our community is happy? How can we get new players as well? We're just about like, let's do cool shit. If I had just said what to do, or if Jonathan had just said what to do, or if Octavian had just said what to do, all of those are worse answers than what had happened.
What is his background? Is that a spider on the wall and a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards?
Due to our capacity to actually hash it out, discuss it, and then come out of the room and go, this is what we're doing. To not be worried about the quality of the thing you're working on.
Well, I care about it.
Easy. Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
You don't, that is one of the, that's one of the reasons why, being responsible for a thing like this is hard, because I have a lot of confidence that Mirage is good and that all of the changes we're doing in 328 are good, but all the confidence in the world doesn't mean that I couldn't have made a mistake somewhere, and that can keep you up at night. And then if you do make that mistake, the thing you care about deeply is now worse because of you, and that sucks. So in order to make meaningful decisions about the game, you have to be willing to take on that risk, and it is not a fun risk to take on, but it's part of the job.
Mark, it's great to see you again. Octavian, we've never done an interview before, have we?
Maybe at one of the PoE2 press circuit events, but certainly not one of these, no.
I think we chatted a little bit, and we got to just talk about PoE in a general sense. I'm curious. It's been a few years now. You're with the Grinding Gear team. How's it going? How are you feeling?
Just generally, it's great. I'm extremely lucky. I got to, join the studio of my favorite game I've ever played and start working on that game.
For those who don't know, you moved a very big move. Where did you move from overseas, or?
Near Boston, northeastern U.S.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trek.
Oh, you moved from the U.S., really?
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's I didn't
pretty much the other
actually.
side of the planet, yes.
So you started as a fan, and now you're working on the game. What's something that you're incredibly proud to have accomplished now that you've been at the studio for a bit?
That's a hard question. Probably, the reasonable answer is probably the first League mechanics that I was ever seriously involved with. Something I did a lot of the work on Mercenaries, a lot of the design of the Mercenaries themselves. But probably the thing that comes to mind first is Valdo maps. I did Mark and Jonathan did the design pitch for them. I just did a bunch of the mods for people to select from, and I'm still really happy with some of those. And most of my work, my early design work, I'm not as happy with anymore. So.
Mark,
yeah, he's the one we blame for losing my hardcore characters to Mercenaries. We blame him.
You see Octavian stepping into this role. He's been there 3 or 4 years now, right?
Something like that, but time doesn't really exist properly for me in my head. So you could have told me it was 20 years and I'd just believe you. I honestly.
Do you ever reflect on your own journey and think, wow, I remember when I hit my 3 years, and look back at the same way he is?
It was a lot slower for me. There was a lot less people going on. Back then, I guess there was a lot less. Honestly, there was a moment there when I was like, when are we going to find the next great designer, so to speak? And I don't want to say that by undervaluing, other capacities designers, but there's this kind of X factor kind of style of design that the game warrants having, where you want to be someone who isn't just, okay, so you have your guys that can, your systems designers, your monster designers, your skills designers, you have the quest designers, you got all these categories of designers, and a lot of them do their niche or their field very, very well. But there's this almost uncategorized kind of designer where a lot of that would come from, historically Chris, Jonathan, even Eric was real good at it. And that was more even a role I adopted where I could do a lot of this stuff, but there's this kind of like X factor design where it's like you're really coming up with stuff that can push the boundaries. You're not just sticking to the comfort zone. You're like, I'm going to come up with a system that's just out there. It's just crazy. And, it takes a level of confidence to actually pitch it and have a level of confidence that like, yeah, I can get this made. Like I will, using these resources, I will go and get this made. And a lot of people can find it quite daunting to be suggesting that kind of stuff. And so Octavian is not as afraid of that and just like came straight through, and he's just like, let's just do some crazy stuff, like duplicating sections of your maps being a concept that's just like, oh, hold on, we haven't heard of that one before. All right, let's give it a go. What would that actually look like? Whereas when you actually pitch it initially, it can be like, hold on, that's way too complicated. How are we possibly going to do that in a 3 or 4 month span? Like how, it's like, well, the requirements for that. And it's like, nah, let's actually talk it through. Let's actually give it a go. And then it turns out you come up with like a decent plan for it and an execution for it, and it happens. And it's like there's a kind of like, yeah, that kind of like higher level kind of courageous design that a lot of people shy away from, that Octavian just was like, yep, that's me, that's what I'm good at. And we identified that, and we were like, all right, we need someone like that at the forefront of Path of Exile 1. Given that, of course, I'm still involved, Jonathan's still involved, but me and him can do a lot of that for PoE 2. We still obviously do some of it for PoE 1, but we need someone who's like dedicated at thinking of that stuff early and actively.
This is kind of what everyone kept asking them to do, like split the teams so that way PoE 2 kind of has a major focus and PoE 1 still has people running it. So looks like they got kind of their separate director, separate team.
For PoE 1 to come and pitch to us, and then we'll all discuss it through. And paired with, but one thing is, of course, you can't be too crazy, because then, nothing we've had. But that's where Andrew comes in, and he's not here, but you might see more of him in the future. But Andrew is a much more grounded, methodical numbers guy who's like very, very good at doing all the balance. And then unless you had like, and I hope he's not taking offense to this, but Octavian's more crazy side with Andrew's more methodical side, and they overlap and just create this like perfect unit that's currently able to lead the design front on PoE 1, under the direction of myself mostly.
That's great. That's great to hear. I would be curious, Path of Exile 1 is an old game. There's this big report that comes out that everybody read. It's the Matthew Ball report. Everybody's talking about it. And a lot of people are playing older games. Nothing wrong with playing older games. I'm curious, why do you think that is? Why is Path of Exile standing the test of time?
So I thought about this. Okay, I have my own answer before he does it. I've talked before. It's like, oh, well, older games, like they were creative and they had to have a way of standing out and all this type of stuff. But like when I think about it too, it's like a lot of the reason people are playing older games, it isn't that they started playing older games. It's that they kept playing older games. Like if someone launches a game like Path of Exile or something that is truly a good game and will stand the test of time, people will continue to play it for 10 years. And then let's say someone launches a brand new game. It's a brand new game. Everyone's playing it. Everyone's going to stay playing it. In 10 years, they're still playing it. People are going to look back and be like, oh, they're playing older games. It's like, no, they just kept playing a good game. Like you can make a game that's good enough that will hold people's attention for longer than just a year or something. It's not like they're purposely going back to play other games. Sometimes the game is just continually like good and you want to replay it because it was still good. Like, I mean, you replay some for nostalgia. That's 100% a fact. And I'll go play Pokemon Red or something for nostalgia. But also there's games that like RuneScape, I don't play for nostalgia. I don't go back and I play RuneScape because, oh, well, it's just me walking in my past and all that. Sure, there's some nostalgia to it, but it's like the game is actually good. And they're continuing to make it good. Like it's been good that long.
I don't even. I mean, it's a good question. It's not like I've ever like thought of this kind of stuff before, because I mean, philosophically speaking, I just kind of focus. I guess Octavian's probably the same. We just focus on like how can we just make the game as cool as possible and just keep making it as cool as possible. I suspect a lot of games fall. It honestly might even be that thing I was just talking about, that kind of courageous, willing to push the boundaries and push the design, that a lot of people end up shying away from because they're maybe afraid of, changing the game away from what their player base or community like. I honestly have no idea. We're getting into like some gaming psychology here, whereas I'm just like, how can we make it cool? How can we make it so that our community is happy? How can we get new players as well? We're just about like, let's do cool shit. Like that's all just like through and through. Well, and consistency, of course. Like we want to, it was obviously a bit of a rough time when we weren't doing the like every 4 months have a patch for both games, but like now we're back on it, and like it's I think really important. I mean, as a content creator, I know a lot of people, like maybe like yourself, in some regard, and I assume it's relevant. And a lot of content creators, like Octavian was formerly, consistency is important. People want to know when they can come back and play your game with the new update. So I don't know. There's maybe just it could be some of the simple things, or it could just be something I don't even understand because it's fine. Like obviously, what we're doing is working, so we'll just keep doing what works and keep pushing boundaries, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
What's your read, Octavian? What do you think?
On the Path of Exile front specifically, I feel similarly to Mark, where it's like we're just coming up with cool stuff and trying to put it in the game because we really like the game and want cool stuff to be in it. But I think that like more broadly on gaming, it doesn't. I haven't read the specific article or report or whatever that you're referring to. I actually kind of want to go look it up now, because I would be surprised if it's not the case that it's just like gaming is now an old enough medium that there are people who have been doing it for long enough that they have their favorite thing that they don't want to move away from. It's like it's like older people with their favorite sport team that they watch, or their favorite book series that they read, or their favorite movies that they go back and watch over and over again. Like we're far enough into the lifespan of gaming as a medium that we can now see that kind of phenomenon, and that's probably just an impact that it's having on these more established games that are been continually releasing content that whole time.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good read. That's kind of what they think is going on. I'd be curious, you joined. Is there anything still on your to-do list, like something that you really wanted to tweak or adjust before you joined that you still want to get to?
A lot of my current to-do list is stuff that I, had a chance to adjust earlier, but it was, 8 months or 12 months after I had been hired, and I didn't necessarily do everything right the exact first time. So it's a lot of stuff that I've touched in the past and would like to go back and fix. But anyone in any creative profession or even if you don't do it professionally, just anyone who's got any creative endeavors, I'm sure is familiar with that feeling. One of the very first things that I changed after I got commit privileges, the privileges to actually change things on the game, is there was a debuff caused by a specific boss. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but there was a debuff caused by a specific boss that would cause you to effectively be frozen, but it had a different name than frozen. So I went and made it it's just frozen now. It's the same name. That bothered me a lot.
He's been sitting on that.
What about you, Mark? Anything still on your to-do list?
I'm sure if I actually had to think about it, there'd probably be about 55 million things. The reality is that like I don't get too caught up on that nowadays. Like again, I've just got like a let's just move forward mentality. Like what's that? I really like the there are the things where I was like, I'd really like to redo these bosses and improve these bosses and this and that, but like it often is just more helpful to think what are the tier 1 problems? What are the tier 2 problems? What are the issues our community's having? And then let's see if we can turn that into a cool design, as opposed to just kind of like, doing some random stuff in the corner that might feel a bit, like, honestly, I suspect players won't necessarily appreciate it. So, trying to think more.
Yeah, I get the vibe that he's not really doing as much as the fun stuff that, it's probably fun to create all the new stuff. I mean, he's too high up there in ranking. He's probably running around putting out fires and dealing with emergencies and doing, like, he has to do all the critical shit. He probably doesn't get it just like, I'm going to make something new and fun today.
From a, how can we benefit the audience the most, as opposed to my I would actually say unnecessary desire to potentially fix little things in the corner that I've left in I've made 300 boss fights at this point, and probably now 250 of them I'm not happy with, because they're dated and things have changed, and I feel like I could do them significantly better, but could also just make new ones that are way cooler and way more epic. So there's sometimes a bit of value to the revamp, and sometimes a bit of value to going back and finishing stuff you didn't quite give the full attention. But again, I've tried to just get away from that, think, and just go forward, do more, do better, and do what we can. And if it so happens that the problem that the audience is having, or a problem the audience is having, circles back to then revamping those things, then we do it, and we'll feel good about it. But at the end of the day, we're not really trying to do things that are in our personal best interests as much as we are trying to do it in obviously the audience's interest and the game at whole's best interests. So hopefully those align often, but not always.
I know you're talking about the new update, but there's some pretty big news this week. Obviously, Phil Spencer's retiring, Sarah Bond's out. You publish on Xbox. How are you feeling about those changes on one of your platforms?
I'll be honest, I had no idea. I was, me and Octavian were having, just talking earlier, and I was like, it's interesting that we're actually, because I was like, I actually don't know what's going on in the world. I know what's going on in Path of Exile. I know what's going on in Path of Exile 2. That's it. That's my knowledge, and that's as far as it goes. So, honestly, I don't have anything to really say, because I honestly have genuinely no idea what's going on. And, go for it.
I was just going to say, when you have a 4-month release cadence I only have to worry about PoE1. For Mark, he's worrying about both games, which are on offset 4 months cadences. It's really hard for the rest of everything else not to sort of fade away a little bit.
Bro, 100%. You just don't know. I'm constantly getting texts from people about shit like, did you see this? It's like, bro, I don't fucking know. Like, I've been playing Factorio for 100 hours straight. Like, I don't know. There's problems? Oh, shit.
We release stuff pretty quickly.
Here's the thing. If it turns around to impact us, I'm sure I'll find out about it, and the fact I haven't implies everything's good as gold. So I don't know what happened, but we're good.
All right. I was actually going to ask about internal development. I'd be curious to...
Did you play more Factorio yesterday? Actually, I played it on the couch. We were watching TV, and there was 4 episodes of a show the girlfriend wanted to watch, and I propped up my laptop while we were watching it, and I built the rocket and launched into space and built the space platform. And then I realized very quickly in Factorio, when you're in space, what you need is not a rocket. You need like fucking thousands of rockets, apparently, because you have to load it with resources and ship it all into space constantly. And that's when I realized, holy shit, I haven't even started. You have to build a million. So I have rockets automatically being built, but only on one platform. You need like a bunch of platforms shipping a whole bunch of different things. They're like trains, basically, only for space. And that's when I realized, oh no, I need a base 50 times the size I have for fucking everything. So that's when my third eye opened, and the realization that basically it becomes a sandbox in space. And I was like, oh no.
Here, do you have heated debates about when you want to change a mechanic, and what's that process like from a creative aspect?
I was going to say define heated, but I know what you mean.
I don't mean yelling. I mean passion, right? Not like...
Oh, you get passion all the time. There's a time, there's generally a time for design, and then there's all right, now we've got all our design, let's execute. And during that time, it's mostly we're working with, honestly, everyone. Like, I mean, I talk to 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe sometimes more than that, people every single day about the things that they're working on. But there are those moments where we're like, all right, we've got to design, like what are we doing for, some deadline in the future, be it the next expansion, one after, whatever. And yeah, we'll sit down and have like honestly epic conversations about exactly what to do. And, there'll be, I mean, me and Jonathan go at it decently hectically, to be honest. I know today we had me, Jonathan, Octavian, and Andrew in the room trying to come up with stuff, and we've all got our opinions, and we're all kind of clashing a bit, and in a good, nice, positive way. And then, like, the cool thing is, you just come out of that, and you have this like, if I had just said what to do, or if Jonathan had just said what to do, or if Octavian had just said what to do, all of those are worse answers than what had happened due to our capacity to actually hash it out, discuss it, and then come out of the room and go, this is what we're doing. And honestly, it's amazing. And often what we then do is we then we'll come to what we think is great, and we'll be like, all right, we want Zaki and some other designer, get in here, and we'll just verbally elevate a picture to them or in more detail, and then just see how they vibe to it. And sometimes they're just like, nah. And then we're like, all right, back to the drawing board. We'll just start again from scratch. Or sometimes they'll be like, this is the part I hate. And then it's like, all right, we can work that out. Let's have a go again. And then we'll get them back in and pitch it again. And then it's like, all right, now we've worked out that. Let's get a different set of designers in and then have another discussion. And then it's cool just going through that process where it's like, because obviously so many different players, so many different opinions, so many different play styles. What everyone likes and dislikes is different. And so, but obviously a lot of our designers are, if we can't appeal to the audience that is playing every single league at every single league launch, then like, that's okay if it brings in new users and new people and you adopt more, you expand your community, but it shouldn't be at obviously the expense of the people that are obviously playing your game and enjoying it every time. So, iterating through a bunch of.
What does that comment remind you of? What ARPG? Like, you can bring in new people and that's like good, but it can't be at the cost of the people that have already been playing your game. Not only like games in general. That's like a statement on all, like, a lot of games in the last 10 years.
Passionate conversations with a whole bunch of different designers is certainly part of our process, and we do it almost every single time. Often some of the best times, that's one more point on that, is because during the day, as I'm talking about sitting down with many different people, and not something that Octavian and Andrew are very familiar with is we, especially early on in the league cycle when we're doing more of the development, as kicking off development, or just before the release of one, because we're quite dynamic. We don't like design too far in advance. We're often just doing it at night. And so, it'll be like 6 p.m. and then they come in and we're just like spending a whole evening just designing stuff together in the office. And, you just like, you lose track of time. You tell your partner, yeah, just be home in an hour. And then all of a sudden it's like 2.5 hours later and you're like, oh, whoops, my bad. But honestly, you get caught up in these like epic design discussions. It's really easy to all of a sudden lose your entire day from them. So, but yeah, it's fun. It's really good fun.
Octavian, I imagine when you started, you didn't start off there, but Mark says you're pushing the boundaries now. So you're probably clashing a little bit more and conversing with your teammates. What's that process like for you?
It can happen. Yeah. One of the really difficult things of working on Path of Exile 1 is sort of goes back to that earlier conversation where, like, it is one of these games that has this long and storied past now of more than a decade. And so, and it has, excellent for us, it has a large player base who are all very passionate and opinionated, and then a lot of people in the office, as Mark said, also play it extremely regularly. So there's basically nothing in the whole video game that you can change that isn't someone's favorite thing. Like there's someone who loves that specific unique, or someone who loves that skill, or someone who loves that league mechanic that you're changing in some way. And so in order to make meaningful change that isn't just, tepid plus 5% balance or minus 5% balance here or there, and to survive, you do need to make meaningful change. So in order to make that meaningful change, you're going to have someone whose favorite thing you're touching in a significant way. And if you don't make it, an improvement in their eyes, that's going to be something they come to you about. And a lot of it is about trying to then, not just immediately reject that opinion and be like, no, the idea I had was cool. You're just, you're just biased, go away. Like, you can't give in to that reaction, because doing that, the one person talking to you is just the one person who happened to see the change coming up to you. There's probably thousands of other people who would feel the same way. So you have to take it under advisement to determine, like, okay, is this something that actually means that the decision that we're making needs adjustment or needs to go away entirely? And there's no silver bullet for that. You just, every single case you have to assess differently each time. It's probably one of the hardest parts of the design job.
On that note, in terms of design, when you're creating something, you have a ton of new stuff coming out with this update, right? So I'm curious,
Sure, yeah.
How much friction and complexity is just the right amount? For example, you have the infamous tree that intimidates people, but when you actually start diving into it, that mechanic is actually really rewarding to interact with, right? So how do you push the envelope, so to speak, but don't push it too far into obscure or confusing territory?
That's a good question. He's basically asking, how do you have depth without, how do you have depth of gameplay without the barrier of the entry being too steep to validate the fact that you have the depth? Like, it's a good question.
Oh, it's super subjective. I think the honest answer is gathering a lot of opinions, getting a lot of feedback, which is why it's important to have even with placeholder assets and placeholder functionality to some degree for some aspects of it, whatever mechanic you're working on, whatever, you need to very early identify what the most important thing is about whatever you're working on. So, for Mirage, for instance, it's the recreating of mechanics and then the wishes and having those feel fun. And then get iterating on them as soon as possible so you can get just a ton of opinions. Because finding the fun is a matter of having a good idea and then synthesizing a lot of feedback into refining that idea. I feel like I maybe danced around your question there, so I apologize if that was a bit of a non-answer, but that is kind of the process.
Yeah, I'm definitely just I'm curious how you got a good design versus you have a flawed one, and what part, like, have you ever done something that pushed it too far and then you test it and it's just sort of confusing to the player or confusing to somebody? And I guess that's what I'm trying to learn about, because we've seen some stuff come out and it just feels like an amalgamation, if that's the right word, of a bunch of mechanics. They don't really fit together, and maybe that didn't work great, So I'm curious how you
definitely
determine you land.
Does this interviewer even play the game? Yeah, he's around here all the time. His name's Destin. Destin's a great guy, independent, used to work for IGN. And he does PoE 2 interviews, PoE 1 interviews. Normally his interviews are quite good. And, he's, I've seen him at events, like actually flying to test stuff, etc. Destin's a great interviewer. And he has like questions that, which I find more interesting than most, which isn't technically about little technical balance shit, but it's mostly about the scope of creating the game. And I normally find those type of questions very interesting myself. Never saw him around before, maybe because he's not a streamer. Yeah, he's a journalist, He's on the article side of things.
That on something good versus something messy.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say that my subjective compass there has perfect accuracy with pointing towards north. For instance, in the update just before this one in Keepers, we released that new package of wand skills, and Somatic Shell, one of the new wand skills that went out with that, is a bit overcomplicated, and I'm not exactly happy with where it landed, and that was one of my designs. So, it's not a perfect process, and yeah, lessons learned there. The new skills going into 3.28 are, I want to think, we'll see when it gets into the hands of players, but I want to think definitely an improvement over some of the efforts in 3.27, which themselves I'm still happy with for the most part.
Mark, any thoughts on my question, or does it even make sense?
No, it makes sense. So, I mean, honestly, step one, trust your instinct. Generally speaking, especially if you've been doing this a long time and the game, Octavian knows the game, I know the game, we know the game. And honestly, at this point, so that you probably know more about how the audience will feel about a thing than you might even appreciate. you don't get to do it for so long. And I know Octavian's is obviously less time, but that's where I would say in his case, he obviously defaults to the opinion of myself, defaults to the opinion of Jonathan. I mean, heck, even nowadays, I'll still occasionally just message Chris and be like, what are you reckon about this? And just, I'm just curious. I'm just curious what his opinions are, keep your compass aligned, like, I'll even message Eric, some of these guys who, because even them now kind of still have their compass intact. I mean, they set the original philosophies of the game and can have just an interesting discussion about it with them. And so even if Octavian was to just check it, like, there's a good chance, and it is, I could understand how it maybe sounds cocky to some degree, but there's a good chance if he likes it, I like it, and Jonathan likes it, we've probably got something on the right track, and you should just run with that confidence. Now, there's obviously then detail within it where it can go wrong, 100%. Often it goes wrong in the detail, be it some of the like more quality of life adjacent things, more user experience-y things, but it doesn't mean there wasn't something there at a core that was right and that was good. It just means, sometimes we, kerfuffle it at a certain level of detail in between then and there.
Word you're gonna hear too
and
often.
Yeah, sometimes we're all wrong. It happens. But yeah, ultimately it's like, we've been doing this for so long. We understand our audience. We are also the audience. We're part of it. We are both, and especially from Octavian and I's perspective, we started from the audience as opposed to from the original visionaries of the game. So we've had our opinions and had to adopt, from both the development and players' perspective. And I know that was so long ago, but honestly, things haven't changed as much as you'd think with respect to, a good idea back then would probably be still a good idea now. So then it just comes down to execution, and as said, getting it in the hands of your designers, getting it in the hands of your QA team, of which all play the game a ton. And then also getting it in the hands of people who don't play your game a ton, getting it in the hands, which is a bit harder to find within our office, but it is still possible, running it by people that don't have a ton of experience and they don't really necessarily understand how stacks work and all of that. And that is the part that, I would like to say we should always do better. We obviously took a lot of efforts with PoE 2 to do a lot of that, quite specifically with first-time user experience testing and all of that stuff. But yeah, I'd say the things that can sometimes go wrong is that due to us being so confident as players, it can be hard to put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't have 50,000 hours of gameplay. So yes, we do have to take extra measures there. We do run it by a bunch of people. We do different kinds of alpha testing to help with that. We have different people in there. But yes, I would say if any.
I'm laughing because they have problems finding people that don't have thousands of hours of gameplay because they all play their game. And I think a lot of other companies have problems finding people within their own company that do play their game. You know what I mean? Two sides of the same coin.
I think where it goes wrong, that's probably where it goes wrong, which is where you mentioned it. Things can seem like an amalgamation of, a mess. The reality is, to someone who has 50,000 hours and knows literally, I know what all these details are. Yeah, they're together. I understand it. So, that is a thing we're trying to still trying to do better. Probably the thing that goes wrong the most. But also on that note, it's a 15-year-old game. A lot of our audience are very, very much PoE enthusiasts, PoE players. We have a growing audience that, every league they're coming back, clocking more hours, understanding the game better, sharing information with one another. But not to say there aren't room for improvement on our end, but I would say it is that, trying to just make sure that we don't assume everyone knows what's going on, and being able to empathize with them better when we're designing a thing, which can be very difficult. Honestly, it's probably one of the actual trickiest things to do. Used to be easier when we weren't 15 years in. When you're 2 years in, you're like, yeah, it's not too bad. It gets harder and harder every expansion. Gets harder and harder every year.
Growing long and harder and harder.
Sorry, just one final note that came up while Mark was talking through in my head there is one barometer I do have is when I'm pitching a new skill to an animator or a VFX artist or pitching a unique to the 3D artist. And a lot of these, some of these people certainly play the game and are entrenched players, but a lot of them aren't necessarily. And they don't really seem very excited to be working on it. That's when I want to go redesign the thing.
So like you get a signal internally that maybe your target was a little bit off, so you should tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, like if it's not cool at some basal level that you don't need to be an entrenched PoE player to understand, then it probably isn't cool enough.
100% agree with that. I actually do try, like, we have our kind of kitchen areas at work where everyone's having lunch and stuff. Like, you can kind of go out there and just be like, yeah, I'm working on this thing, and like kind of just start pitching ideas, and just if people are interested, are listening, and they're like, whoa, I like that, and you're checking their responses, be it body language, are they paying attention or not? Are they actually like, whoa, I want to play that? You can get a vibe just by like talking about everything. We have a company meeting every Monday where literally every single person in our company is all in this big lounge area, and we have lunch, and everyone sits down, and then like Jonathan and I and even Octavian recently, what are we working on this week? What have we come up with? What are the new designs? And even that, like, you pitch that to the whole company, and you get a lot of opinions from a lot of different people where they're coming in, of different. We have people who play for only a few hours. We have people that don't play at all. We have, depending of what team they're on, obviously, there are some artists, there are some that have very little playtime. They're very good at what they do. They're passionate about the work, but they don't necessarily play games in general. And there's not many of those people, but even you get opinions from them, and it's kind of just cool to hear. And you also then just get a general vibe in the office about when people are talking about it, and they chat with each other, and they're expressing their thoughts, and that circulates around, and it creates this kind of interesting thing. And when you've pitched something at that meeting and it isn't good, you will hear about it like almost every single time. It'll come back to you from like 6 different directions and be like, this is bad, stop. Or they'll be like, or you'll hear like, oh, this is amazing, that's awesome, that's crazy, like I can't wait. And they'll be asking you for more details because they want to learn more and know more. So even on just that regard, where you just like send it organically out into the company and just like kind of see what happens. And because we've got a very open discussion and open floor plan, and like, we have our office, Jonathan and I have our offices in the middle just with like glass doors, and everyone can see. There's no, we're not like.
I talked about this when I came back from visiting them, but like, this is one of the parts I was most surprised by. Like, they don't have like a boss office that's like intimidating. They just sit in the middle, and it's an office, but it's just basically glass walls, and you just walk in. So like, I'll be sitting there and I was talking, and they were showing me shit, and Mark and Jonathan sit next to each other, and then someone would just walk in and be like, hey, like, we're working on this, blah, 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 and then they just sit there and answer. Like, it's just, there's absolutely zero red tape, and there's no like meetings. It's just people just walk in and work on the game. You know what I mean? So that was like the communication was surprisingly good. Like, everyone's just kind of walking around immediately talking to everybody. You know what I mean? There's no like emails being sent and shit.
Isolating away in some room. Like, it's a very open discussion, open ideation, a very positive for creativity environment and discussion between team members. When the designers are talking to each other, the programmers can hear them. When the designers are talking, the effects artists can hear, the animators can hear. People listen to that stuff and you can kind of vibe on whether or not they get excited, or they'll come and, people feel like they can generally speak pretty openly about that stuff and just be like, I want to know more. I don't like that, or I love that, or whatever their general emotion on it is. Sometimes they're just like interested, teach me. I want to know something. And, it's a very cool environment. And I think it contributes a lot to the general, I guess, reinforcement on what is a good idea and what is a bad idea.
My vibe, just as you're talking about that, is that you seem really positive on Mirage. You seem a little more lively than normal. What is it about this update that has you hyped?
I wouldn't, a good question. I'm generally pretty hyped about everything. Honestly, you might actually find what gets me down when it comes to these interviews is we're always coming to the end of a development cycle where I'm, like I, to my own detriment, invest too much of myself into the games. To be honest, like I put the game ahead of a lot of my personal well-being that I maybe shouldn't, this time round with having Octavian and Andrew be people I can lean on more, I am actually getting to not to be as stressed and to not be as overwhelmed by the stuff. Because even if I'm like ultra confident, I still get really, I have a lot of like, well, what if they hate it? What if they don't like it? What not? What am I going to do? And I work myself up. It's just who I am. I've literally done it since I started at this company. I just can't turn it off. Like people are like, just don't. And I'm like, I don't know how. I'm just gonna worry. I'm just gonna stress. But obviously shared suffering, it is a keystone in our game. And shared suffering, if you want to call it that, in terms of, because I'm sure Octavian, and I'm sure you can say this, you're worried as well. Like,
oh, sure.
To not be worried about the quality of the thing you're working on.
Well, I care about it.
Easy. Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
You don't. That is one of the. That's one of the reasons why, being responsible for a thing like this is hard, because like, I have a lot of confidence that Mirage is good and that all of the changes we're doing in 328 are good, but like all the confidence in the world doesn't mean that I couldn't have made a mistake somewhere, and that can keep you up at night. And then if you do make that mistake, the thing you care about deeply is now worse because of you, and that sucks. So like in order to make meaningful decisions about the game, you have to be willing to take on that risk, and it is not a fun risk to take on, but it's part of the job.
Yep. And there is an underlying anxiety that just comes with the fact you care, that you give a shit, and that you want to make this thing that you are passionate about. It is a passion project, right? It's not a, I'm just doing this to get paid. Like, it is an actual, I want to make the best thing for myself, for the staff, the team, the audience, obviously, the players, right? All of this, it has to be the best. It has to.
Like, honestly, I know you're like, I know people make the games for like, their audience. I get it. But the fact that the first thing he says is like, I want to make the best game for me and like my team, like, that's good. It's crazy good. He means he likes and plays the game. Like, he wants to make a fun game for himself. If he wasn't playing, didn't care about the game, didn't want to make a fun game for himself, like, that's when you have problems. As soon as the people making the game like aren't playing the game, like there's a massive disconnect. So it's like, I actually love to hear him say that he wants to make the best game for himself first. It's like pretty much exactly what you want to hear, dude.
To be good, and so you just kind of get a bit, the pressure can be a lot. So having the extra designers to help with that, and
well. Actually, as I think about that, that's the best thing possible if the person who's making the game is really in touch and excited about the genre. You don't want someone who's making a game for themselves who's like an outside person from the game and genre you're playing. Like, you don't want to, I don't know, bring in somebody that has nothing to do with what you're making, and then they make the game about themselves. Like, that's there's actually, as I think about that can be dangerous. But like, it is a good thing to hear in this context.
Shared suffering, but also shared joy, shared celebration. It's all, you share it all, but it does make things calmer for me, and which is amazing, by the way. So thank you, Octavian, also while we're at it.
Sure. Happy to.
Yeah, it's good.
Mark, this is random. Did you change your office? It looks different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm currently going through a bit of a, I've ordered, I had the 3 computers in here, and, there was a time where I was having a lot more people around and we were just playing games together. But I'd say as of late, it's, not as social out to my house as much. I don't know what for necessarily, no particular reason. Going out more maybe, but I'm currently in the middle of a redecoration, so I've got my got rid of the desks, got rid of the computers, and I've got like a nice couch coming with a side table. I'm just
You're redecorating.
Redecoration, yeah, and then we've got all the new disc plates and stuff, and I want to make sure I get all of those because I think
I got
really
all
cool. So I'm gonna figure out how I can hang all these things behind me up on the
Displays
wall
are
and where they
great.
go. I got space all around me, so I don't know. Well,
Getting old, bro, 100%. Like, you're getting old. Maybe this is just personal experience, but it's like, you're getting old when you like cannot talk to a friend for like 2 months, and then you start talking, and like it's like totally normal. And everyone's like, oh, that's fine. Like if you're a kid, you don't talk to someone for like 2 months, you might as well be fucking dead. You know what I mean? It's like you don't even know they exist anymore.
See what happens. But bit of change, bit of like revamping the game design, doing a bit of, rebalance, I guess. Whatever you want to call it.
No, I was just curious. I was just like, wait, his room's different. I thought I'd ask about it. I was curious also to know if you've ever added something to the game that you really thought players would interact with, and then
do you reckon they still thinking about how much money they could do for the update, or it's really about the game? I don't think they ever started the game, and I don't think that they've continued the game with the premise of the first thought being how much money can they make. I think that obviously revenue comes up with any game and any company. Like there's times they definitely think about it. I think they definitely like min-max release dates around that stuff. December's a big time. But like I don't think that is like, I have never witnessed myself. I don't see it in the conversations they have, nor in my interpretations of their vibe or anything, in which one of the main primary facts have to do with the revenue the company generates. I don't believe that that's really a motivating factor for them. I think they're probably grateful for the success that comes. I think they need the success in order to continue to generate the company, but I don't think that that's like, I don't think they're bottom line centric.
they just barely touched it or didn't even notice. Anything like that that's ever come up in design? Like, did anybody notice you changed the name to Frozen versus what it was originally?
Probably not, no. That's an example of what Mark talked about earlier, where it's a little problem that you fix for you that really probably wasn't worth. Though to be fair, that took 10 minutes. So
yeah,
that at least was not a deep rabbit hole to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of much like now in my position, like as not that there isn't a level of detail, but lately I'd say, I'm trying to make sure my time is spent towards grander things as opposed to getting lost in that finer detail. There would have been many, many, many things in the past, but like honestly, hard to remember them. If they weren't that important to the players, I'll just get it out of my memory as soon as I need to.
I have actually the perfect thing for this. One of my first, so just learning the ropes of the game files and where things are kept and how things are set up, I was given a bunch of, relatively simple tasks to begin with. And one of the very first ones was giving every monster in PoE2 a blood type. They all have they don't all have their own distinct blood type, but there's like 20 different ones that they could have, and they all have one assigned. So like if they should have red blood or, black or green or whatever, it's all assigned.
Wow.
Probably very few people notice that.
Yes, I mean, every single monster has a surface type, be it bone, metal, wood, and it literally controls an amount of the type of sound that is output when you hit it. But because you also have an outgoing weapon, so you can have a slashing weapon or a puncturing weapon or bladed, that also impacts the sound. So it's like, what is a puncturing weapon versus metal versus wood versus, all these different combinations. And I suspect when players are playing, they don't necessarily pick up on that kind of level of detail. They're just like, I hit things and it goes bush. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the cumulative effect of all of those little things is what lends a sense of polish to a game. Like all of those little things do add up to mattering.
It's cool. And like, yeah, when I find, I'm like, hey, why does this have red blood? This should have had insect blood.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What's going on here? This thing obviously doesn't bleed.
Okay, that's great about like the sound effects and the difference in the immersion and all that, but then, this is what you end up seeing.
Use raw flood and temp machines. I don't want to switch more to build.
Can you tell what blood type he's attacking right now? How about that sound effect?
10K.
The whiplash.
Red blood, and it's like, how is could you find that and you're like, why? I can't believe you thought this should have had ghost blood, but it's like, well, if it looked like a ghost, I don't know.
Also, I won't linger on this that much longer, but every just because this is another thing that I had to take the time to do. I like the job. Every single melee pattern that every single enemy and player attack does has directionality data, so that you can determine which direction the blood or other things like debris should fly when it hits a target.
That's cool. This is like really cool nerdy stuff that I like learning about. That's really, really fun.
I knew 0% of
It
any of
makes
that.
me wonder when you see something like, I know you don't go outside, Mark, but when you see something like
Fucking
Red
got
Dead
him.
Redemption 2, or is your mind just blown
God.
about how many systems are going on with that thing?
Yes. I do always wonder if they actually have more systems than we do, or if it's more just that we've never talked about a lot of ours. Because like there is so like if you open our table editing software, I swear it never ends. It just never ends. There's tables everywhere, and every table has dozens to hundreds of columns, and it's just this never ending just cascade of data everywhere that feeds into what are we 15 to 20 years of code, and like it's just insane the amount of stuff going on in PoE now. So it's like I suspect we might even somehow have more overall complicated. I mean, as you would when it's there's a long time of development. That is a ton of code written, let alone a ton of data added. And I mean, when we had Metamorph, the table for Metamorph was like one designer had to input 11,000 rows of monster to skill correlations for like, if this monster is a liver, then it does this skill. If it's a heart, it does this skill. If it's for every single monster in the game, and it's just like go for it. And then there's many, many tens of columns there, and it's like just every single league has things like that where it's just an ungodly amount of data that someone's had to input and model, and then there's levels of detail and how it connects to some other league or some other system, and it honestly is just this. There's the idea that I want to actually one day,
Destin?
absolute waste
enjoying
of
it.
time, but just for fun, try and draw the like overlapping circles, or like almost create spider webs of every single, like some sort of giant string board of how everything connects. And I honestly, I suspect it will just end up looking like a mush. I don't think you'd even be able to understand what's going on. But it's quite
Snake Park.
It's quite fun, and you find stuff.
It's a bit differently paced. I was exhausted. I mean, actually, I quite like this one, Destin. I think it's a good one. You're talking a lot about like game philosophy. It's very relaxed chat. You're talking a lot about like game philosophy, the design, what it's like to work there. I love this type of shit, bro. I much prefer this stuff than. So tell me like how the mechanics work of the new skill you make. I actually don't care about this shit at all. I'm much more interested in like them actually creating the game. I think it's much, much more interesting for the majority of the people, because you can always find some YouTuber who spent 5,000 hours on one skill to explain everything, that knows better than the devs that fucking created it anyway. So it's like a lot of times when you're talking to the dudes that are making the game, I much prefer hear about what it's like to make a game. So, yeah, absolutely. Great interview, Destin.
It's from the ancient times, I call it. I'm always like, this is from the ancient times. Like, how it's like when determining, there's like a formula that got done back in the ancient times. And it's like when it's like, why? What is this hidden thing here? Like, why is it when a monster has, so generally nowadays we put in the monster's attack time and, of its default attack, and it like kind of is the thing to effectively say this is how fast to play. Well, that's what we used to do. How fast it plays the animation, and then you put in a number, and then the actual number is just like that times 1.5, and you're like, but why? I don't understand. Why is that happening? And then it's just somewhere, and it's just everyone knows. Like, yeah, when you go to put in the number, you times it by 0.67 first, and then type it, and it's like. But why? And you're like, but you timed it by 0.67 first and then type it.
Did he?
And it's like, but why? And you're like, it just is what it is. Like you just say, look, it is what it is. Just put it in and move on. Don't ask these questions. And it's just it's like, look, it's a thing from the ancient times, and you just get this like all over the place where you're like, okay, and then like turns out, I don't know, there's a when weapons, like obviously because instead of inputting
Crimson.
every single minimum and maximum damage for a weapon, you obviously have a formula, and generally when you put in, you can skew the damage up or down, and there's some other numbers you can override or set. And then turns out there's like, I'm like, but why is the number, I don't understand why the number is like this. Like these both have 100% damage, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's just a hidden thing where if you have the more attack speed a weapon has, the formula then like starts penalizing the damage. And then you're like, but why? That you can just specify the damage and the speed. Like there's no reason that it has to do this. And again, it's just like, nah, it just is what it is. Just don't, because honestly, taking that out and then re-putting all that in is just not worth it. So you just kind of go, all right, it is what it is, moving on. And you end up with that everywhere. You just have all these like, and as a designer, you come in and you just slowly learn about all of the things that were done in the ancient times, and they just are what they are now, and you work around it as much as you need to achieve the result you want. But there's just kind of like, yeah, here's the like 20,000 things you'll just need to know that you'll slowly accumulate over time, and you'll be confused, and it is what it is. And it's quite funny.
I have one more for you. I'm curious, you're messing with Endgame. Anytime you do that, there's probably an expected community reaction. Do you think it's going to be positive or a little bit of shock? Because you're toying with a lot of systems they've been used to with this one.
You're right. It is always a little bit of a like scarier thing to edit, for sure. Like it can have larger ripples and cause a bit of devastation, for sure.
Don't forget the 0.67 multiplier.
God,
yeah.
God. You know a fucking meme is dead when all of us old pieces of shit start talking about 6.7, dude. Like, okay, when the fathers have got the joke, it's fucking over.
There'll be some map multiplier somewhere that is unexplained. Let me just think about that. What are we doing? Obviously, we've got a new system, and some of these things we've already thought about. But like, let me just give you a run through of some of the stuff. So, we have a new system where you're actually engaging with the maps on the atlas using the geographical events, so to speak, with the blobs, whatever keyword you want to call them. But obviously, our player base love running the same map over and over and over and over. There's a bunch of people who are just like, Crimson Temple, that's my whole league. Burial Chambers, that's my whole league. Insert other maps here. We obviously came up with a keystone to solve that. But yeah, when you do that, you're like, oh, hold on. This new system is at odds with the people that want to do this other strategy. So now it's like every single time we make, and you'll notice it when I explained all the keepers stuff. It's like there's a notable to be able to do this, a keystone to be able to turn this off, and a keystone to be able to turn this other thing. Like every time we're designing the systems, we have to go, all right, here are all the different types of in-game players. How are we going to make sure that system works for all of them?
Bro, okay, again, I have to bring this home to my most recent experience. He just reminded me of Factorio. It's like, hey, I need to change one line in my circuits here to build something else. Oh, well, that means 45 hours ago, that one little line I did with copper plate now fucks up literally everything. And I have to, like, this means I need more of the lower tier circuits, which means I need more copper wire, which means I need more copper, which means I actually need more furnaces. And because of that, it bricks the amount of fucking power I have. So I need to go do is I actually have to go build more power. But if I build more power, it's increasing the pollution. If the pollution's getting more, well, actually I'm starting to get attacked more, which means what I really need to do is to build more defenses, but I can't do that without running conveyor belts there in order to feed the ammo to the defenses. So what I need to go do first is build conveyor belts. It's like holy fuck, bro. I can understand it. I can understand it.
Thankfully, we have an Atlas tree, and we can do kind of modular things like that where you can turn them on and off. But all it takes is for you to miss that one, and then all of a sudden you've now got a subset of people who are happy running their endgame, and now the strategy or the thing you've added is at odds with what they want to do. So yeah, we have to think about that a lot. It's kind of can be a bit easy to miss something, but like, we've done a few passes on a lot of this where we've tried to come up with exactly what can go wrong here. That being said, I don't think a lot of what I think we've thought of a lot, and I think a lot of what we're actually doing is quite safe. At least I believe so, but I'm happy to be proven wrong on release day.
I would say that a lot of the fundamental mapping process is still actually deceptively similar to what it was before. There's just kind of new toys to play with.
Okay.
Toys are good.
Putting it simply, yes. I mean,
people like toys.
I was just trying to think what else. Obviously, we've done some changes around like originator mods, T17 maps, you know, and there's probably as much as they were problematic for a different you know, the whole I feel like I have to run it, and then there's the set of people who are just they don't mind running it, but they hate the mods. Then there are the people who are like, I don't want to have to trade every single map in order to get X, Y, and Z. You know, it's good overall for a large majority of the players, but there were probably some people who were just happy with how it worked. And we're changing it for a majority, and we certainly feel like it's the case. And so, yeah, there's going to be some people who just aren't happy with our change. And, you know, we just have to be confident in the fact that it's in the best interest. There's a lot of new cool stuff for them to be doing. There's something equivalent, if not the same, for them to be doing, and so on. But yeah, it's certainly a sketchier thing to work on, for sure.
Well, I'm excited to see everybody's reaction to it, and I do want to thank you both. Mark, it's great to see you again, and Octavian, it's great to interview you for the first time.
Destin.
Thanks so much, you too.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, there was a short roundtable of questions. I will add those here on the end.
We have obviously Destin's first question, which is, do you do a lot of takes for these presentations, or have you got it down now? No, I do a lot of takes. To be fair, it's more just like you when you're recording them, you slip up on words. Sometimes you know, get a bit of a dry mouth, and all of a sudden you can't, you know, say words. When they're really, really long, sometimes when you're in the last quarter of it, you have to postpone and record the next day because you get to the point where you all of a sudden you're trying to speak and the words aren't coming out. But yeah. Yes, it does happen. It just depends. Sometimes also, say if it's at the end, if we're recording at the end of the day, you've been like, you know, having design discussions all day, and you just like run out of a bit of, you know, your throat is maybe not able to quite speak to the same efficiency. So you just got to do it again the next day. But getting better at it for sure. I do swear a lot, and I do say a bunch of silly stuff when I'm in the recording booth trying to say all these things. I say weird words and, you know, make words up. Sometimes I've got to say a word and make up an entirely new word, you know, just these random things happen. All right, so we have another one, which is just a simple love the campaign updates and a question of how hard they were to add in. Well, from my perspective, some are easy, some are not. Some are rapid fire, some are not. You know, it's honestly, some of them can take a matter of an hour, some can take a matter of days, but honestly, generally pretty easy to get through a lot of them. Just depends how meaningful you want it to be. Because we did so many this time, you know, it's generally, I'd say, small and simple, but, you know, some of them might surprise you. I don't know. Do you have anything else on that, Octavian?
It is always the things that you think are going to be trivial that end up not being trivial at all. Like,
that's true.
Ooh, let's try and get, you know, a voice line to play in this new way that we've never done before, and it needs to come from an object rather than, you know, an NPC or whatever, and then that takes 6 hours of trying to wrangle things to work because everything was set up expecting voice lines to come from NPCs, etc.
Yeah, that is true. You sometimes have your plan of like, this will be easy. It'll take 10 minutes. And then, you know, you're at the end of the day going, this was meant to take 10 minutes. We're about 8 hours in, but sometimes you just got to pull the plug on those real early. But
yep.
Yeah, all good. Another question here. We got, have the other two bosses joined the hive? Or is it still Tulanesh and Varun? It is just those three for now. But as said, very excited for the future here.
They mentioned that there
I wouldn't
were.
say we have an immediate
They said there were more bosses to be added into PoE 2 also for Breach, if I remember correctly.
actionable plans, but it's pretty obvious. We've set ourselves up to be able to extrapolate on that and get Zoff and Ulnatol involved. Obviously, there's a bit of stuff, leading up to Chiola and involvement here. Like, I think this is probably one of the more silent benefits of Keepers of the Flame update is just the capacity to extrapolate in the future and do more with those Breach Lords. Whereas, again, speaking from historically, the Breach stuff was, done before we invested as much as we did into the more narrative side of things. But yeah, I obviously can't speak to any specifics there because that's future content. But you can, just by playing it, you can kind of get a vibe of what may be to come. But yeah, we'll see. All right, we've got another one here, which is making an ascendancy that changes abilities every expansion. Feels like
recently got told that 33 campaign areas in PoE 2 are being updated in 0.5, with more being added to the edit list every day. So you're telling me that 33 campaign areas are being updated with 1 million more well underway, basically.
like a huge commitment.
Tell us the source. His source is probably a little bird. If I remember correctly, Crimson Cast is in deep. He has paid off significant. This is all true, not fake speculation. I'm sure he appreciates this. Has paid off many GGG people to leak him literally everything. So anytime that there's a leak for PoE 2, it's Crimson Cast is to blame. So just blame him for any leaks ever. Is that right? Is that okay? Where I find this video, I'll link it to you. It's Dustin's channel.
Did you decide to do that? Yes, it is certainly a commitment. I remember when we brought this up, I was like, you guys better be ready for the maintenance we have to now do every single league. But I mean, look, that's just part of the game. Part of Exile, every time we do stuff, there's honestly more maintenance than you might think at first glance. Like, obviously there's balance and whatnot, but even things like Atlas shuffles, and I mean, there's a decent amount of random little things. We just kind of have to add to that, and it's honestly just a matter of like, okay, is this going to be worth it? Is this cool? And I think it is. So, I mean, when me, Octavian, and Andrew, another one of the main designers on PoE 1, we're sitting there talking about it, and we're just like, okay, is this worth it? And we all agree it's cool, so we got it, and we have to, right? And then we all kind of just check with each other, and then we're like, yeah, sweet, we're doing it. So, that's just kind of how it goes. But, I can imagine it having a bit of negativity as well when there's a really good one, and it's meta, and then the next league, now it's not good. So, like,
the fact that we've set it up and we're like explicitly saying like this is going to change every league might help to mitigate that, though.
I agree. It is very important to establish a start 100%. There'll be obviously those who don't understand that, but they'll learn. But I imagine that if it's insanely good in one meta and then it's like, well, it's going to change, and it changes for the next, I could see a bunch of people being like, damn it. But I can also see that excitement. There's the pros and cons that come with it, where it's like, it's not very good, and then all of a sudden next league you're just like, oh, I need to check it. Is it good this league? And then you can just check every single league. You have this like a little bit of like, oh my god, I can't wait till they release what their Relicquarian is this league, and you get a bit excited about it, and then sometimes you get disappointed, and other times you get very excited. So we'll see. But no, it's cool. It's very cool. I would like to do a bit more of it. Not sure where, but yeah, be fun.
I mean, it can often feel like a lot of the coolest designs, unfortunately, are also the ones that come with that sort of upkeep baggage, Stuff like every time we add a new support gem, it has to go into, Forbidden Shaco or whatever, the thing that gives you a random support gem. Every time we add a new unique, it has to go into the disenchant value stuff for the settlers. There's a lot of little things like that.
Yeah, having to make sure things have gold costs for currency exchange or for async trade, and there's just like this ever-growing list of every time we add something, there's like 6 other things that have to be done, or 12 other things, or 50 other things. But it should be pretty cool. And as Octavian said, I'd say those, in a lot of cases, especially with like a lot of the really modular uniques where you have to add a bunch of stuff every time, like you just said, they end up being some of the coolest uniques that end up with the most use across a long band of time. Like they pretty consistently in the upper echelons of usage on the on how many people are using or how many characters are using them every league. So hopefully this class does the same.
I like that he distinguished between characters as opposed to people, because people run multiple characters.
Level of justice over a long period of time. Continuing on the Relicquarian then, the question is, will you add newer uniques regardless if that league goes core or not? I would say that we haven't really thought about it like that, and the answer is I suspect we'll just do any unique regardless of if it happens to be in or not, and we'll just do it if it's cool and the combos are cool and if it works out, honestly. I would say there's not really a restriction, because, I mean, just because it doesn't happen to be in core doesn't mean that the item doesn't exist somewhere in the world from a narrative perspective. So for the Relicquarian to have knowledge of that item and have somehow harnessed the capability to have that power, it's, that's up to her. So we'll see. But I would say, yeah, there's not really any limits to that. We'll just see what happens and just play it. I mean, end of the day, we'll shift it around, see what's cool, make sure we think it's fun, make sure we think it's balanced, and I would say there's not really, the sky's the limit, you know what I mean? There's not really a unique that would be outside of viability for that. So, more commitment to future things if we want to do that. But of course, whatever's fun is whatever's fun. All right, a couple more come through. So first is that we have, if there are any replicated encounters in a Mirage, are there consistently going to be modifiers to those enemies, or are those similarly affected by chance? There's a few kind of layers of modifiers going on here. Generally speaking, the monsters, depending on where they've come from, the leagues kind of get modified. Like the leagues work a bit differently. Obviously, depending on the wish, it could affect different things in different ways. That's obviously a different outcome. But if you're talking about just like the base monsters, and Octavian, you can probably clarify this. Like, if you have a magic pack in the original, do you have a magic pack with the same mods in the next, or are they different?
Not necessarily the same mods, but I think that it would carry over the rarity of the monsters. For the encounters specifically, like for other league mechanics being recreated, they do all have every league mechanic that can be recreated, which, to be clear, there is a short list of things that can't be recreated, mostly for functional reasons. It's pretty much anything that'll send you to another area from within the Mirage wouldn't work, so like a Volside area or something. But all of the encounters which can be recreated can be empowered, and it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, whether that is always guaranteed or chance-based or whatever. So, for instance, the strong boxes will always have extra Afarud packs. They'll always have extra packs from the league mechanic, but they might also then be replaced by a new strongbox type called the opalescent strongbox, or they might be replaced by a technically old and returning strongbox type, the operative strongbox, and that's chance-based. So, like, some of it is guaranteed, some of it's chance-based, and that's kind of the case across all the mechanics. They have, a mixture of guaranteed and chance-based, which should mean that if you're consistently running Mirages and you consistently have content in the areas where they're being run, you're consistently getting a lot of value out of them.
Part of the good, obviously, benefit there is that if it's kind of like any Mirage can still be good, even if the area that wasn't copied or replicated, like if your map wasn't that good, that doesn't mean that your Mirage can't necessarily be kind of at least somewhat good. Whereas if it was identical, you'd get that thing where it's like, well, I know that wasn't that good, so I'm not going to go in there because I don't want to just do something not that good again. So it has a kind of like minimum level of like, oh, I want to get in there and see what's been modified or what's affected or what's slightly different. Like you might get a regular strong box and then you're like, well, a regular strongbox maybe doesn't have that much value, but if I had an Arcana strongbox, that would be more value. So I want to go in there and see, and hopefully that's rerolled. So
what is this chat I'm seeing in my chat? Why does the bigger developer not just eat the smaller developer to gain his power? And then the next person says, makes total sense to me. What? What has my chat become? Do we have a single serious person here anymore?
A little bit of mystery works to making sure that you still always want to get in there and you're
fault.
excited and something more valuable can come of it. It's cool how there's like that layer of here's what.
This isn't fucking Kirby.
It's the same and here's what's different. It's like it's honestly a little bit addictive in terms of like I can't wait to see how this is, how if my Mirage has made this thing better, the same, or different, or what's happened to it. It's like quite cool, especially as you're discovering all the different stuff that it can do. It's like quite exciting. Like I imagine, obviously a bit of community effort to gather all the information, but I imagine as people are kind of learning about how everything gets manipulated and modified, it'll be quite a fun experience for the first kind of chunk of the league.
There is also some level of like baseline just extra juice that every Mirage will be bringing, where there's we don't really call them out explicitly, but in the footage you can see these like sort of floating magical looking artifacts, and when you run near them they'll explode and spawn in a bunch of extra monsters. So there's just extra enemies in the Mirage. And as we went over in the live stream, there's the sigils, which give the monsters in the Mirage a small chance to drop valuable things. So every Mirage you do has a baseline, there's a chance you could just, get lucky in that particular instance and drop one of the new coin currencies, which will most likely be rather valuable.
All right. Well, next question we've got: have we prepared ourselves for the people going to demand Mage Bloods and Headhunters on the Reliquarian?
Good question.
We're always prepared for the demand of Mage Bloods and Headhunter level power. So, yes, we're prepared for sure. But yes, look, obviously, we're not going to we're going to try to avoid in our best interest to have extreme rarity uniques on the Reliquarian, because at the end of the day, people need to feel like they can play any Ascendancy class and not to just play the one that happens to give them the most powerful items in the game. So for the sake of balance and to build equality, we will try our very best to, keep it in line with other Ascendancies. So some uniques you may never see on there, or if you do, you'll see a severely weakened version of them. Next question we've got: the coins were shown to corrupt gems. Does it function exactly like a Val Orb? And are the gem imbuements stuck at level 1, or can we roll higher level ones? Well, it doesn't function like a Val Orb in that it does the random outcomes. It does corrupt it, and it is at odds with a Val Orb. So you want to either imbue it or corrupt it with a Val Orb. It has some interesting choice. The imbuements are always at level 1, because generally, a level 1 support gem's providing a pretty decent amount of power, even like as an extra 7th link. So that being said, getting the right support gem, of course. You can get a decent multiplicative bonus of damage or whatever you want, or even some utility on your skill. Putting it at odds with the Val Orb means that we don't have to go and just like power creep everything by a good 20 to 30% in that regard. Obviously, kind of, it's powerful enough that it had to be at odds with something. If it wasn't, we would have to have found a way to make it weaker, or we'd have to have taken away from something else, and we generally don't want to do that. So, in some cases, maybe like depending on what build you're playing, you might want to, get a certain imbuement, and in other cases, you might just be all right corrupting it and hoping for like, your 21 gems, etc. So, we'll see how it plays, depending on the build, depending on the type of gem, etc., which is quite cool. I like that it's at odds with it. Having more than one kind of end point of crafting on different contexts is quite a cool decision to have to make. And but yeah, we'll see how it plays out, because it's not really something we've done too much of, having alternate forms of corruption at the end there. So see how it goes. But it should be quite cool.
One of the other cases I've seen internally, people like, playtesting with it and finding good use cases for it, is something that I didn't really see originally, which was that it's just really useful in a lot of your utility skills. Like you can bake in faster casting to your Orb of Storms or faster attacks to your Leaf Slam or something, and then free up another link in your boots or whatever, because it doesn't have to go on your main skill. It can go on various other things as well.
Yeah, true.
All right, there we go. We got one. I like that question as well. Are there limits to how many League mechanics can be replicated by the Mirage, by the Astral Realm and the Mirage League? Short answer, no. But as Octavian said earlier, there are a few that can't be replicated due to, him explaining as there's like subzones and stuff. So, yeah, you're gonna, I guess at the end of the day, you're gonna have a bit of like just space. It's like how many leagues can spawn close enough together within your map. So there's a lot of like kind of, I would say a lot of randomness to this, but at the end of the day, certain maps actually might be a bit better at it and other ones not, depending on like kind of how, and I love how that works organically, by the way, where like some maps will just be kind of maybe on average better than others in some regards, or due to the nature of how they spawn their league content, and there'll be a bunch of like kind of interesting interactions like that. But ultimately, I would say there's not really a limit per se, as there is like, just how many leagues happen to be dense enough in the map. And when it recreates it, it just recreates it and it puts them all there. So there's, I don't know, how many leagues can you get in your area, in your map? That's kind of the actual question. And so we'll see how I'm very curious to see how the players are going to try and max that one out and see, what's best, where's best, how it can do it all, and create the most crazy area, and then create the most crazy subzone of that area, and do it again.
And I think we do mention it in the live stream, but it bears repeating that the Mirage, the logic for the placement of the Mirage will heavily bias towards being near other things that it can recreate. So if your map has a lot of league mechanics in it, the Mirage is more than likely going to be near them.
It's honestly kind of exciting. I'm just in my head thinking about running maps and just like, how can I get the most amount of content stacked like in a relative area such that when I go into my Mirage, I can get the best of it twice. And I'm even just I'm literally thinking through every tile set right now, just going, oh, this map, that map could, what about this map? So it's kind of interesting.
The other thing that's very, very relevant here is, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but a Mirage doesn't just like project an area in a circle out from itself to determine how much area it covers. It has a budget, so to speak, of the nav mesh, of the terrain that the game has that you can navigate. It essentially has a budget.
The walkable area where you can walk is a way of thinking of it. Yeah.
And it will expend that budget, flood filling outwards from where it spawned. And that means that it doesn't matter if your map is shaped like a line or a circle or a ton of squiggly bits, it's going to still be approximately covering the same amount of area as it would in any other layout.
Octavian, please do get into the weeds. We are PoE players. We live in the weeds. I used to live in the weeds, and then I got into my 30s, and living in the weeds just gives me anxiety now. I can't do it anymore.
So there might be some advantage to a more cramped or a less cramped map layout for some other reason, but your Mirage will still be a pretty decent size in any of them.
All right, yeah, all good. We'll conclude it there for the written Q&A, and I just want to thank everyone for being here, and be it if you're new or returning, thanks for listening to seeing our presentation, and obviously very excited to play the league, very excited to, play the league twice in the Mirage, and try out the new builds and all of that. Obviously it's very, very cool, and I just once again thanks for being here, and hope that get to join all of you playing on release day, or whenever you want to play after release day. I'll be playing
that was a good one.
Anyway.
It's very enjoyable.
And
in case you missed it, here it is. It's a long one. It's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Appreciate it.
A huge thank you to the Path of Exile team for joining me. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. Thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to all the supporters: Christopher, Brandon, Cheruby, Jason, Marcus, Hargeet, and Shane, I do appreciate all of your support, as well as everybody who supports my work by becoming a member here on YouTube
Holy,
or
that
becoming
patron
a
list.
member at patreon.com/SafeStatePlus. Now, I've done these interviews before. Check this one out, and in the comments, let me know if you thought this was a good one or if this was like medium range or a bad one. How could I do better? Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you.
The best, the way you can do better, Destin, is I love your interviews where you mentioned that your streamer friend Darth Microtransaction, you were watching him, you know, just try the work in a shout out to Darth Microtransaction somewhere within every interview. It was in the last one, and that was your best interview yet. This one didn't have it, so I still liked it, but it, you know, it could have. There was room for improvement. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, another good interview, Destin. Thanks for doing these, by the way, man. I know you normally don't cover PoE too much, but been doing these interviews just so that we can watch them. He always sends them to me on Twitter.